everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day. Whoop whoop. Happy Wednesday to you. Happy Fantabulous Wednesday to you. Why? Because today is the first pattern drop for the Fantabulous Scrappy Stars. If you haven't picked up the pattern yet, because as we are building this is a free pattern, and once we're finished, it will cost. So grab those patterns, check it out on our blog, grab your first, and let's have a little fun, okay? And while you're there, if you want some of the intro information, it's also there. I will drop links down below or to the right or to the, wherever it is on your system. In the description box, I will have those links for you. So this video is the first one, and this is the first Fantabulous Scrappy Star, okay, with its beautiful 9-patch center and all of the flying geese that surround it. Our sawtooth star with a 9-patch in the center. So this video, I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to talk about the cornerstones, the sashing, and the flying geese for the sawtooth star, because those are the things that you're going to need to do every month, okay? Those are all going to happen every single month that we go along. This is 16 blocks. We're on our first. And so throughout, you'll need to have all these things keeping it going to keep us on track. Then, after I get through those, we will talk about this center block 1 that we have, which is, again, the 9-patch. So we'll talk about that, all right? And next pattern drop, we will then just talk on the centers. Every time we drop a pattern block or a pattern, it will be related to just the center. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. I'll see you guys in just a sec. Starting with what you need to do every month are the sashings. Okay, there are 40 of them total. 40. And seeing that we're going to do 2 blocks a month, we should finish this again in about 8 months. So you will need to make 5 of these a month. Now, whether you break it down 1 a week, whether you break it down all at once, whatever floats your boat, if you want to keep on track and keep things moving, we need to make 5 a month. Now, so basically what it's going to look like, move this out, is like this. A tip and trick to keep these not from bending. I'm gonna sew this one on first, okay, and I'm gonna stitch from here, and I'm gonna end here. When I go, and after I press, you want to press very gently, I'm going to add this strip. Now, knowing that I finished down here, I'm going to start up here. Okay, now notice I flipped it. It's just because I want all of that to go out. So I'll do one with you so this makes more sense. So this is the first one that I'm going to do. I should probably clip that better. This is the first one. And before I sew at the sewing machine with you guys, I'm going to clarify which way these need to go. I think it's going to be, this is on the left, but what I mean, I'm going to check to make sure I'm sewing the right one in the right place, okay? And I'm going to start with this side. So I'm going to take you to the sewing machine, and I'll see you in just a sec. So I've sewn these 2 together, and doing that, I stopped down here. So now I'm going to start down here and go the other direction. So I'm going to put this right on top, okay? And then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to, making sure that, you know, most of the bulk of my quilt is over there from my machine. And I'm going to simply stitch this together. I will tell you I'm pressing towards the dark side on both of these, okay? That way in the future things will nest. I will always let you know which way to press things to keep things nesting. So we're going to press towards the print, away from the center, okay? I'm going to take this one and I'll see you for more of what we got to do every month. See you in a sec. And this is what you should have. And you, again, will have 5 each month that we're doing this. And I did press them both going out towards the printed. So we do have, at the end, we'll have 40 of them. Next thing we're going to need to do every month. And I'll do the rest of these off camera. Oh, and I almost forgot. I said I wondered if I was sewing the right one on the right side. It didn't matter because we can just turn it. Okay, so there we have it. That is, we'll need 5 of these a month for a total of 40. All right, so the rest off camera. So the next thing that we're going to have to do every month are the cornerstones to those strips. If you want to keep on track every month, you would want to do 3 every month, except one month you'll need to make 4, okay? What they can, I'm going to make 3 this month. So what they consist of are 5 background fabric and 4 printed squares. So I have all those cut and ready to go once a month, and then one month will be an extra one. And it's basically going to look like this. I'm looking to see that my my tone on tones are actually right sides up. Okay. We put them in here, and it's a simple 9 patch, guys. Simple 9 patch. All right. The most important part of this, there's a couple of things, is going to be pressing if you want to make sure that it nests with your strips. Okay. So, therefore, what I'm going to do is walk you through this very simply, and we'll talk about the pressing as we go. I'm having thoughts here all of a sudden. At any rate, remember, we're building this together. So any kind of things I need to tweak, we're going to find out as I go. We are first going to sew each row together, okay? Like so. When I press this particular block, if you'll notice, if you remember, let's move these up just a bit. I put this cutting mat down because I realized that white on white doesn't show up very well. All right. I'm going to press the first and third row going towards the dark side in the middle, and then the middle row is going to go out towards the dark also. That was a happy accident. Okay, so the reason is these are press going out, so this will need press going in, okay? Because remember, these are going to attach eventually. We're going to worry about that at the end. However, in, out, in. Okay, let me come back at you and I'll see you in just a sec. Once you have these rows, each individual row sewn together, remember we're pressing towards the print, okay? Then all we're going to do is stitch this one to that and this one to that to get this. So what is the pressing for this? Well, y'all are going to love it because it just works out so nice. All right. So we press towards the print on the small block, right? This time we're also going to do the same thing. So this seam and this seam are pressing towards the print, okay? See, towards the print, you can see those, and then towards the print on top and bottom. Why do we do that? It just worked out great, guys. No matter which way we're adding sashing to, remember these are pressed towards the print, this is towards the print. Those seams will nest in the future. We press this going towards the print, we press this going towards the print like at the beginning, so everything is going to nest in the future. This works out great. Again, last time, 3 a month for these, 5 a month for these to keep on track. One of the months you'll have to do an extra, okay? If you want to do all 25, you go with yourself. If you want to do all 40, you go with yourself. That is there, whatever your jam is. I'm just trying to keep us on track and keep it so that when we get to the end, we are ready to assemble, okay? And doing that, I like to break mine down, okay? So 3 usually, except for 1 month, 4, and then again 5 of these. All right. So that's what we need to do every month. Now, if you're pulling from your stash, I have some tips for that, and you're not using a color chart or your coloring sheet. I do have tips. So I'll talk about that later in this video. But in the meantime, those are something that need to happen every month. And there's one more thing that has to happen every month. And I'm going to get organized, and we'll talk about that here in just a sec. So the next thing we're going to start working on that we have to do every month is the outside of this block, okay? This black part is what the center goes in. But all of these blocks are going to be constructed the same. If you're doing something controlled scrappy or scrappy, each one of these legs of the flying geese, these are flying geese, will be different. But in all reality, it's still the same block, so going through it once will be helpful. Now, I am doing this with the flying geese with FPP, foundation paper piecing, because it's my absolute favorite to get just the perfect 1/4 inch at that point, and everything lines up very nicely. Nothing goes cattywampus. If you want to see how to do a flying geese traditionally pieced, I'll put an eye on this video that links. If you click on it, it'll take you to that video where I did the flying geese for this side. But this we're going to do every month. What changes is the center, okay? So saying that, FPP, I'm going to tell you what, I went cutting happy. And I cut enough for a couple of blocks this size, okay? Well, I should have cut them bigger, and I didn't. So what I ended up doing is I just quickly made myself my own little flying geese papers, okay? You can do this yourself, knowing where you need to draw. You can use a ruler on paper and draw out the size that you need for the rectangle. The corners always meet in the middle, so you can find the middle to make sure this line is straight. And give yourself, I would start with the inside of whatever size you're making and then draw a 1/4 inch around, okay? You can do that. I am using these papers just to show you about foundation paper piecing and how this works, especially with flying geese. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going, as soon as I get through all my pre-cut squares, I'm going to go ahead and use the 3x6 flying geese papers for this method, for this whole rest of the pattern after I get through. They're different. Okay, this one you make 2 at a time. Much different scenario. So no matter what you do, whether it's traditional or foundation paper piece, and if you elect to do this with Itsoema, it's important that you follow the manufacturer of the paper or the designer of the paper's directions, okay? Because it's different. I'm only making 1 at a time. This one makes 2. And it's important to understand what exactly you need to cut, because you're making the two and you need to understand what all they want you to do with the lines, okay? Because it's important. This whole thing is different. You still have 1, 2, 3, so you're still only dealing with that, but the size of the fabric needed and what you do may be different. So no matter what you do, just follow the cutting instructions for the manufacturer. Follow their instructions on how to use their paper. This is not hard. It's just different. And I will be using this after I get through all the pre-cut fabric because it's not the right size. Okay. I got a little zealous. I was excited. I didn't even cut it big enough for my own FPP paper, but it's big enough to maneuver. So when you do a foundation paper piecing or FPP, you have the side, this is the right side or the top side of the paper, which has all the lines. And then you have your back, which is the back side, which is plain. Okay. So we actually start, and this is the first beginnings of any FPP. This is the part that everybody gets confused on. Okay. And there's a lot of flipping and flopping. So you start with the lines facing the table. You start with the back side of the paper facing up, okay? And then you take your placement 1 fabric, okay? And you put it on top. Now, if you make this bigger than the lines, it makes it a whole lot easier, but mine is not. It's exact. So what I'm actually going to do, a light box would be very beneficial, and I own one. I just don't have it at the shop. I need to bring it in. And we will go again with some FPP. And we're going to have more FPP as we go along because some of these blocks in the center are done with foundation paper piecing. More to come. So I'll make sure to have that in. But temporarily what I'm doing is I am going to just tilt it a bit. I can see the light, or you can actually hold it up to a window or to the light, to a light source, you know, that is in the room, whether it's at the ceiling or whatnots. But because I cut this just exact, why? I was just too excited. I have to make sure I'm good to go. And a lot of times I can see through the paper, but it's a little difficult today. Then I'm going to go ahead and attach the fabric to the paper. And pins work great. Temporary glue like Roxanne's glue or Soline or anybody who makes a temporary, even Elmer's washable glue, it works too. I don't know how well the paper comes off. I've never used Elmer's washable glue, but it is washable, so it's temporary. Just make sure that it'll come off. Now, Roxanne's and Soline, usually I do use Soline to glue down, works great. All right, so I got it inside of my square. We're then going to flip this over, okay? And we're going to start making sure we get things a little easy. But before I do, I'm going to take this square, and I wanted it to be bigger, and I wanted it to be able to cover all of the number 2. We're doing this for number 2, okay? So I've got this square. It so happens to be the same size, I think, as the squares that I need with It's So Emma papers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up corner to corner. Now I want to cut the points as best as possible. So I'm leaving the points exposed a little bit, like a rotary blade worth. And then I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut it in half. Now one of them I can use for another block, okay? Because we don't want to put 2 on the same block. So now we're going to prep this paper. We've got our fabric under here, and you want to make sure when you put the fabric on, and I got it backwards. Okay, so we got to flip it over and do it again. This paper, this is the back side of the foundation paper piecing. This fabric needs to be right side facing up. And tone on tones are a little tricky. So you just want to make sure that what you're doing is correct. The right side of the fabric is facing up. Okay, I'm going to repin it. And notice I'm pinning where I'm not sewing. Okay, I know I'm not going to sew in here, so I'm safe. All right, right side facing up. Then we take this paper, and I use an add a quarter ruler plus. What's the plus? The plus is a beveled edge. Okay, this is really skinny right here, and that's going to help me with my papers. Now, do you need one of these? Absolutely not. Some people use a thin piece of cardboard, maybe even the cardboard that you get with a 10-inch square pack. That might work. But something thin and long enough to fold along this line. But the beveled edge on this add a quarter ruler plus does the job. And then the thing about the add a quarter ruler, I'm trying to see how I can make you see this. Here we go. You can kind of see it right now, but it's got a lip. So I'm hitting this lip. I'm going straight down and it hits this lip. Okay. This, and you see how it's like a different shade. Okay. That's the lip. All right. This is a 1/4 inch. This is brilliant. Do you need this? No. But tools do make things easier. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I want to sew. I have my foundation, which is the placement number 1, and I'm going to go to number 2, okay? And I'm going to line up my add a quarter ruler along that line, and I'm simply, with the beveled side down, and I'm simply going to take my fingers, and I'm going to make a fold, okay? I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to take now the other side with the bevel. I'm going to place it down right next to that fold. Okay. Hold it so that it's flush against the fold. That's why it's got that lip. It will stop when it hits the paper. I've got a 1/4 inch between where it hits the paper and the end of the ruler. I'll take my rotary cutter and I'm going to trim. Done. Okay, I was just looking at my fabric again. I'm like, oh gosh, did I do this wrong? Tone on tones, they'll drive you crazy. Okay, so now I've got a 1/4 inch away from that line, okay, on the front side. So now I'm going to open the paper back up, okay. I'm going to flip this over. All right, so now again, we have the fabric facing up. Now I'm going to take that triangle. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. The idea is that you want to find the middle-ish, and when you fold it open, you want it to cover the whole area, all of number 2 to include out here. You want this out there, okay? If that line is there, you want it to be there. Again, follow the manufacturer's instructions. It may be different, but it's the same concept over and over. You got to have something that it's going to cover, okay? So, all I'm going to do is eyeball it. Okay, I'm living on the dangerous side, obviously, because I cut my fabric early and, wasn't thinking, should have been bigger. Okay. So I'm going to put it on top. And what you're doing, I know it's really hard to see because I got white fabric, but I am lining this fabric up even with the trim line that I just did. I just trimmed it. I've got an angle, okay? So I'm going to take this fabric, I'm going to take this angle, this edge, and I'm going to line them up nice and pretty. Now what I like to do before, I don't think that's centered. There's a couple ways to do this. I'm eyeballing, so I'm going to flip it and make sure that I'm going to cover. And I actually think I got to bring it down some more. I know you can't see it. Light box, but I can. All right. And if I needed to, I'd pick it up, I'd take a look. I think I'm good here. All right, so I'm going to put it back down. Now try not to maneuver this because this is bias, right? Don't do it too much, don't pull it, don't stretch it. Now I'm going to pin again because I want to secure it. All right, so now I'm secure and I want to pin where I'm not sewing or anywhere close that my foot is going to hit. So I'm going to flip this over. I am actually going to do a back stitch right here. And I'm going to stitch right on the line. I know y'all don't usually hear me say that. Making sure I'm not going to hit it. I think I'm going to hit my pin. Now I do notice right here is my pin coming through. That's plenty of room. But I think my the head of my pin is going to hit it. So I'm going to actually take it a little further down. Okay. And then I know I'm really not far. Now, so why am I doing that? I'm trying to secure that fabric. All right. So I'm going to do, it doesn't matter which way you do it from. You could do it from here. You could do it from here. But I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down at that point right there. I'm going to do the back stitch to secure it. And I'm going to stitch right on this line all the way down. I'll probably come one stitch past and then do a few back stitches and come back and cut threads. Okay. Sometimes I land right on the point, but usually I go a little bit past. It's okay. Especially in this block. It really is okay. All right. Back stitch, stitch down, back stitch. Now, another tip. Lower the stitch on your machine. So I usually stitch with a 2.0 in stitch length. But on foundation paper piecing, I take it down to 1.8. If I go any lower on my machine, the paper perforates and it separates, and that can be disastrous, especially if I have to rip it. And especially if there's something else somewhere along the way, because now my paper's not connected. Some people take it down to 1.2. Some people take it down to 1.5. If it's not perforating the paper, you're fine. Okay? If it is perforating the paper, you're not okay. So I do 1.8. That works for me. So I'm going to get this stitched. Okay? And what I've done for this video, so I can speed it along, I've actually got one finished. Okay? So I can continue to show you. So get this stitch. That's what this is. All right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to take out the pin and we're going to flip it just to make sure that it covers what I'm supposed to. Again, you can hold it up. If you can see underneath, my fabric is right here. You can't see that, but I can feel it. Okay, so it's going beyond these lines. Perfect. This is good to go. So now what we do, I'm going to bring over my iron. And yes, we got the fuzzies. All the threads. Gotta love thread. It's everywhere. Quilting bling. So I'm going to set my seam. And I am going to simply press. Hold it down for a bit. Now, if you were smart and you had time, whether you just let it sit or you put a clapper on it, but just let it be until it's completely cool, because that will help reorganize the memory of the cotton. Cotton has memory, so it wants to go back to the way it was. If you just let it sit till it's cool or you put a clapper on, either one, it will allow it to reorganize the fabric's memory to sit nice and flat. Okay? So we went ahead and pressed. I'm going to move this back out of the way. So that was 1, and we added 2. So now we're going to repeat this for number 3. So we're going to flip it over. Okay, and notice I didn't take this pin out. This is a magic pin, so it is heat resistant. Okay, so if you happen to go over it, it should be okay. I've never had a problem myself, but with the flathead one that is made like this, I had somebody in the shop who was in a class and it stuck to the iron. It wasn't a big deal. We cleaned it off with magic iron, but I've never seen that happen. So I don't know if it was a dud because I've never had a problem myself. I just want you to be aware that it can happen, okay? So we have placement 1 or fabric 1, fabric number 2. So I'm going to flip it over, all right, so I can see the lines. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to flip it upside down. And I'm going to take my beveled side of my add-a-quarter ruler, and I'm simply going to refold between 1 and 3 because 3 is the next one that I need to sew. Notice I'm not picking up the fabric, okay? I'm just picking up the paper. All right. And I'm going to give myself a nice crease on the line. Fold it down. Take the other side with the bevel in. And then grab the rotary cutter. And I'm going to trim. Now notice I have some of that other fabric from number 2. That's okay. We want to get rid of it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and cut and remove. All right. And I'll save that for a later day. So again, we're going to open it back up. We're going to flip it over. We've made our nice line that we need to utilize, okay? That is a 1/4 inch from the drawn line because we use the ruler. All right. So now I'm going to take the next fabric, which I've already cut the square, and I'm going to lay it down what I think is middle, nice and straight. And notice I'm putting it right sides together, so this is the wrong side. The right side is facing the fabric. I'm just going to give myself a little checkaroo. I'm going to slide it down a little. All right. Actually, let's try this another way. So I put it where I think it needs to be. Yep. All right. I'm just going to show you another method here. So I'm going to lay that down. I can see the lines that you can't. Well, maybe you can, but I can see where that corner is. I've made myself a little crease. So if I lay that down, am I going to hit it? Does it need to be exact? No, it does not. It just needs to be close. Okay. So that, whoops. So that when I flip it up, it's close and it's going to cover everything. That works. Okay. So, doesn't matter how you get there. Light box, guys, is phenomenal. Okay. You don't need one, though. You do not need it. Okay. Now, then we're going to take our pin. Remember, I got to secure it. We're going to pin it where we're not stitching. Okay. And we want to make sure the raw edges are lining up. They're nice and straight. Okay. Then I'm going to take this paper. And when you load it, you need to make sure that you're not flipping the fabric underneath. Ask me how I know. Nice and flat. And I'm going to stitch from this point. Do a little back stitch. Come on down. Stitch on the line at 1.8. Come down to here. You can go one stitch past. And then do a little back stitch and cut threads. Okay? That would be the second piece. Now I have one here because I'm going to show you how to finish this block up. So I've stitched along, okay, and I'm going to pull out my pin, and then I'm going to check it, okay, just like we've been talking about. I'm always going to check before I move to the next step, and I'm good. The fabric is all the way out here and all the way up here. Whoop, this way right here, and it's all the way out here, so I'm good, okay. So I know at this point I can take this pin out. I'm going to go ahead and press it off camera, and then I'll show you how to trim the block up. Okay. She's all cool and ready to trim. So on my FPP that I put together, this solid line is the actual block, and this dotted line is my 1/4 inch going around, okay? Not all are created this way, so again, you really have to read the instructions for the manufacturer of, or the designer of the paper. But because I know this, what I'm going to do is take my 6.5 inch ruler. Now you could use this too, because remember I said this was a 1/4 inch. I could lay it down on the inside line, and then my outside line would be a 1/4 inch. All rulers tend to be slippy slidey, so I like a little bit more oomph, okay? So when I do this, I'm going to line up a couple of places. Let me get it here and then I'll explain what I've done. Okay, so I have a 1/4 inch line. It's dotted on this ruler. I've lined it up on my solid line. It's lined, this 1/4 inch is lined up on this solid line, and then I happen to have this angle right here, so on my ruler, so I put it on the line with the angle. So I'm pretty darn happy and straight. I also use this particular, if you notice, I use the True Cut to cut my fabric. Rotary cutter. This is an Alpha. Notice the ribbon. It tells me this is for paper. It's my own thing. You don't have to do this, but paper tends to dull blades faster. So when my blades go bad, I use them for paper because it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to stick it right through here, and I'm going to cut the first one. Okay. I'm going to turn everything, make sure nothing flips or does anything crazy. I'm going to line it back up once again with the same kind of method. I've got a 1/4 inch. I'm going to line up on the line, 1/4 inch on the line, and then that angle. Give it a cut. Turn it again. Do the same thing. Now this time, well, I could do it like this, I bet. Yep. All right. So this time, I'm lining this 1/4 inch up, and I can see this one. Want to make sure it's straight. I've got this line, that diagonal line going with it. Take my rotary cutter and cut. Okay. Turn it again. Last one. Fun story. If I wanted to, I could get that angle again, but with this one, I can see my 3.5. I can see the dotted line. I can see on the dotted line. This will be even. And then I know I'm a 1/4 inch from the point, because we want that 1/4 inch where the two lines on the paper come together. And I'm just going to cut. Okay, see where those two lines come together? You want that 1/4 inch right there, okay? So now my block is finished. Okay, and if we measured, It measures exactly where I need it to be, and I have a 1/4 inch that goes from this point to the end of the fabric, okay? Usually I hold on to the paper onto the fabric until I'm done with everything and I'm going to start piecing. Sometimes I piece with it, just depends. This one I am not, but I'm just going to show you how easy it is to get rid of this paper. The 1.8 stitch length is what helps the most. If it's too big, you might pull on your stitches a little bit. That one already started to come out. If you happen to have any paper that sticks, depending on how crazy and like sometimes I get, you can get a pair of tweezers and pick it out. But look, mine worked just fine. So there we have it. I have 1 flying geese done. So you'll have to make 4 of them. So let me, and then you can go to the next step. And what I'm going to do, I will also tell you, you'll need 4 flying geese a month. And you will also need 4 of your background fabrics cut at the right size. And the pattern tells you exactly what size to cut them, but you'll need 4 of those every month. 4 flying geese, 4 squares, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just, because we are on block 1, the center block 1, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the center block, and then we'll come back to the construction of the rest of it, okay? And that will complete this week's video, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more as we keep going, but let me go ahead and get everything cleared off nice and neat. And let's start with center block 1. See you in just a sec. So here we are, right back at the first center block. We've seen this before. Some of us have, right? It's a simple 9 patch. 3 times 3 is 9. So that's why we call it a 9 patch. Super love it. Wanted to start with something a little more simple. Every week we will be dropping, or not every week, excuse me. Every video drop that we do for this pattern, we will have a different center block, okay? And in the quilt that I'm making, it's going to be a little bigger than the small quilt, okay? It is a 6.5 inch finished block. Every single center is going to be 6.5 inches. You can get that in the pattern. You can find out in the pattern how big you need to cut your squares. This is free for you guys. Now, if you are using the same color, doesn't even have to be the same print, doesn't have to be the same line, but if you're doing the same colorway, in the pattern I have actually given you a big picture of this so you can actually see it, and I've given the SKUs of which I'm using, okay, just in case you are using the same fabric that I am. All right, and if you're doing the same colorway, not necessarily the fabric, at least you will see the colors if you like the way the whole quilt looks. And if you used your coloring sheet, you can actually look to see which colors you meant to do, okay? All of that was in last week's blog. It gave you the coloring sheet if you so desired. It gave you the printed out design with the colorways that I'm using. And I also gave a swatch card to show you the different colors and the SKUs in case you were interested. All right. So we're starting with the 9 patch, and I wanted to talk about this. That's cute. Okay, 9 patch. We've done this before. We did it earlier in this video because we have a 9 patch in our sashing and our cornerstones. Excuse me, our cornerstones are a 9 patch, but we're going to go through it one more time. So we have 3 rows of 3. I have my fabrics laid out just how I like them. I'm going to take the second row and put them right sides together. Okay. And I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch right along here. So let me get this done and I'll come back at you in just a sec. Yes, I brought back this because I'm going to show you something. And I think it works better, at least for me. So I've sewn these two together. Now we always talk about pressing because especially with this stuff we like, or if you're like me, you like your seams to nest. Fantabulous, right? All good. Oh, Fantabulous Stars. Okay, so I have pressed the top row going to the yellow, the middle row going towards the middle or the purple, and the last one going towards the red. So out, in, out. So these will all nest. Okay. Now the reason I brought this in, what I wanted to show you is when you are thinking about your 1/4 inch seam, and I sure hope mine's on board. I always like to check as I go. Even if I've been sewing 50 of these things, and I will stop periodically, probably about, I'd say 5 or 6, 7, somewhere between 5 and 7, just to keep checking, because things shift, things happen, and we want to make sure that our 1/4 inch is still where it needs to be. No matter what method you use, you want to make sure that it's still consistent, okay? So when you measure these two blocks, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this was a 2.5 inch square that I sewed two together, okay? Now it's more preferable that you check before you actually work with your fabric and your blocks, but I do check periodically. So I would check this periodically if I was making a whole bunch of these, okay? And what's important to understand, we had a 2.5 inch block here, so it should still be 2.5 inches tall. However, we've lost a 1/4 inch in the seam, okay? So my 1/4 inch should line up right next to the seam line. Mine does. This is how mine works. So I line up right next to that, and I notice that I'm at 4.5. So let's think about this for a second. 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5. But we had a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch from this fabric. That 1/4 plus a 1/4 equals a 1/2 inch, right? So 5 minus 1/2 inch is 4.5. So when you sew these together, these two blocks, you should come out to 4.5 in length, 2.5 in height, and your 1/4 inch seam or your seam line should be at 2.25. Okay, that way you know that your 1/4 inch seam is good to go. And you should eventually get where you need to go. Okay? I wanted to point this out. I think it's very important to understand how to read before you get the whole block done, because by the time you're done, if your 1/4 inch seam was cattywampus, the whole thing's going to be cattywampus. Okay? So it's good to check before and periodically throughout your quilting or piecing. All right? So we know our 1/4 inch is good to go. Now what I'm going to do, at least for now, we'll see what happens as we continue. I'm going to go ahead and add this block on, and this block on, and this block on. Okay? Let me get that done and we'll come back to the next step. I'll see you in just a sec. All right, so they're all added. I will tell you I pressed this one going out also. So both of these are going out, both of these are going in, both of these are going out. Okay? And I can already tell you I got a little issue. Do you see how this, and I could rip it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to force things to happen. So do you see how this one is going kind of cattywampus? It goes up. That's because I did not sew this straight. Okay, so I can already tell there's something going. I had a perfect 1/4 inch over here. I promise you this is not a perfect 1/4 inch. So saying that, let's go ahead and measure. Let's see what's happening. Okay. So this should finish at 6.5. And I will tell you, it actually does, finish at 6.5 over here. However, if you take a little peek at this, okay, I'm still at 2.5, but then look, it goes like a little, I mean, if you blow me up, you can see it's a little cattywampus, and then I've got a little something sticking out over here, and then I can see a little of the mat underneath here. And if you look at this seam, remember it should be at 2.25. It's 2.25 at the start, but it goes in. It doesn't go straight. So that I did not sew straight. All right. On this side, so we have 2.25. On this side now we had 4.5 with just the 2 blocks, but we've taken 1/4 off. So now we're at 4.25, and it should finish at 6.5. This I wanted to show you this to you because I did not sew straight. Okay. That's how we can tell what's going on. All right. And it wasn't my 1/4 inches off. It was just simply because I didn't sew a straight line. Sewing a straight line is also important. Okay. But it's not enough that I'm going to worry about. I'm actually going to be able to hide this within the next seam. All right. So I thought I'd share that because, you know, stuff happens and we get a little crazy. See, there's the end. And now here's the out. Okay. And you can always check your pattern or whatever you're using to make sure you don't flippy flop, you know, if it's important to you. But now I'm going to show you with some pins. So I really do want my seams to nest very nicely. So I did the pressing, but then I want them to stay connected. A lot of people can simply feel it as it goes through the machine. I think I can, but it took a long time for me to get there. Years. And then I still don't always feel it. So I go to the all true pins. All right. So we're going to sew first the top to the middle. So I'm going to take it just like it is. I'm going to flip it over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to nest my seams. Now, what in the world does that mean? So basically, you want them to, the 2 seams to butt up right where that line is, to butt up right next to each other. If you have a gap, it'll show on the front where it looks like they're not lined up. If they're overlapping, it'll look like they're not lined up. They'll be separated. The seam line will. So you want them to just be right up next to each other. And then I take my pin, and on the right side of the seam line, because you know or the stitch line, okay, I'm going to go next to it, but I'm going to give myself enough space for my needle to land in between the pin and the stitch line. And then I'm going to take another pin and go on the left side of the stitch pin, but on the seam. Okay. Then we'll come across here. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now it's also important, now remember I have cattywampus fabric. So it's also important that you keep the raw edges aligned. Okay, so you don't want something like this. And you don't want something like this, right? You want to keep them nice and equal. And then I'll put a pin on the right side with enough for the needle to hit. And I'll put a pin on the left. Okay, and if you, sometimes I go ahead and pin the edges because I want them. Now notice I gave myself space for my needle to land. But you know, I don't want them to go crooked. That's the important part. And I will stitch, I will jump on here, pull the pin out, stitch, stitch, stitch. As soon as I cross over this red fabric that's laying on top, I'll pull this pin, I'll go over the stitch line right before the next pin and pull the pin out, stitch, 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 etc., etc. Now I've got a little, I don't know if you can see it. It's hard to tell. It looks like this fabric might be a little bigger, and it's probably because I'm looking at my seams to make sure. Oh, and then look, see how that's flipped? We don't want that, so I'm going to start this one over. So that ripple is concerning me because my stitches, my 1/4 inch is on board, and that fabric should lay straight. So it tells me that either I've got a problem where I'm not butted, or, oh, that's much better. There we go. I don't think I was butted. Sometimes, though, if you sew crooked and you have that little bit of a ripple, if you just pull just a little when you're sewing, not much, don't yank it, but just give it a little flatness, it'll stitch out, okay? But it's definitely a place where you should be alarmed that there's something happening, okay? And mine, I think, was that my seams weren't nesting. They weren't butting up next to each other. It had a gap on one of them. Okay, so I'm going to add this one and stitch a 1/4 inch to put these together. I'm going to go ahead and press, and then I'm going to add the second one the exact same way, the bottom to the second row the exact same way, okay? And then we'll come back and I'll see you in just a sec. So here she is, your 9 patch. Now how did I press? I pressed them going out. That is my preference, is to press going away from the center, so we can put any kind of extra fabric that needs to have room, a place to go. So as you will see, oh look, I had a little, remember I told you to watch the flippies. It didn't quite go a whole flip, but it's a little one. There's probably a pinning issue. But it's pretty good. I actually don't have a full flip stitch. So just wanted to give you a heads up. So this should finish at 6.5, and because I've already shown you, these lines should still be 2 1/4 and 4 1/4. Okay? 6.5 inches square. All right. Now, going back to getting this block finished. So I have finished all my flying geese. And of course I have those blocks ready. Oh, that's going to be in the way. So we'll move those over here for right now. And if you have to, if you've color coded, or if you're following the colorway of what I'm doing, you want to refer to the pattern to make sure you put these in the right places. So, oh, and I will tell you, this one is flipped for me. It's not like my pattern. Nope. Yeah. And this one either. How lovely is that? I got them flipped. So it's very important here. I'll just show you. Whenever you make your flying geese, okay, so I'm going to turn it this way because it doesn't matter which way you turn it. So this is my red and this is my blue. So when I built the flying geese, I should have looked to make sure which one is which. It's going to work out. It's going to be fine. Nothing super crazy. Oh, and look, I flipped this one too. So I have a real struggle, obviously, because this one should be reversed. It is what it is. It happened to work out. But it's very important when you build your flying geese, make sure that you have the point going in the direction and that 2 is 2 and 3 is 3 for placement, right? And obviously I got 1 right, 1 out of 4. So you can see how easy it is to mess that up. And if I had a certain fabric that had a challenge, that would create chaos, okay? But it doesn't. All is well. So you want to lay your flying geese where they go. And then we will put our squares down. And of course, I'm looking to make sure that my that my tone on tone is correctly positioned. And I want you to notice something, guys. We have another 9 patch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is identical to a 9 patch. It's a variation of one, what we call that, unequal 9 patch. There's another word for it, but that's the only one I can come up with right now, because they're not equal block sizes, but it is a 9 patch. So we're going to do the same thing, okay? We're going to actually sew row 1 and 2 together. Column 1, no. Well, you know what I'm saying. This one to this one, this one to this one, and this one to this one, with a 1/4 inch seam. And I wanted to mention, remember how I talked about we want seams to nest, so you always want to be cognitive of what's going on. And I said it really didn't matter up or down. Well, if you'll notice, none of these seams are matching another seam. Okay? So it really doesn't matter how you pressed, up, down, or whatever. I just wanted these to nest, so that's why it was important. But for the outside of the block, it didn't matter. Okay? So I'm going to sew all of these together, and I'll come back at you and I'll tell you how to press in just a sec. So I've got the first 2 patches sewn together of each row. And I want you to notice something. Notice that I have a floating point. I'm okay with floating. Okay? What does that mean? That means that I'm not like right on it. But it looks great. Okay? I'm okay with that. It's when I chop them off when I have problems. So I typically sew with a scant 1/4 inch, and this is an actual 1/4 that we cut. Okay? So what I want to show you is the back side. But before I do, let me tell you how I pressed. The top row is going to press towards the solid patch on both row 1 and 3. And there's a reason. This one presses towards the 9 patch. Okay? And here's why. If you want things to lay nice and flat, you'll want to press away from the flying geese. Okay? It's very important to understand. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes it's just not going to happen. All right? You have to do what you have to do, but it's best if you press away from this, because there's so much bulk. It will lay much flatter if you do. So understanding that, why in the world do I have a floating point? And here it is. If you look here, I think I have a little piece of paper in there still. Maybe not. Okay. I did not actually hit on top of that point. I have a little extra stitch here where I went past the stitch line when I foundation paper pieced. So it may look a little confusing. But when you're stitching along, if you can nail it right on top of that point, it will be a beautiful, beautiful point. If you go above it like I did, then it'll float. If you go below or even right on the point, right on has a potential of chopping it off. And then if you go below this point, No matter what method you use to make flying geese or any points, if you go below where those two meet, you're going to chop them off. So as you're stitching along, if you have your flying geese on top, you'll be able to see where you're going to land. And I saw that I wasn't right on top of it, but I'm okay with floating points. Okay? It's just a personal thing. There's no right or wrong. But that looks good. It's just floating a little bit. All right, so what's the next step? Next step, you know it. We're going to add these blocks. Now see, here's another one. I'm going to try and land either where I did on this one or right on top of it, okay? Right here. All right? And then, of course, we add this one. All right, so let me get this done, and I'll see you in just a sec. I'm on a roll today, guys. Okay, and I'm going to show you why. So, how did I press these? I pressed, again, out, in, out. And this is, of course, it took everything out of me. Because this is floating, I kind of wanted this to float. But it took everything out of me not to just give it a little curve to meet it. Yeah. But as you see, I've pressed away from my flying geese. Okay? So that these will lay nice and flat. Especially since they have some area to lay nice and flat in. Now what I want you to notice, I did not cut one of my flying geese straight. See that? See how it curves? But this is straight up here. So this is sewn correctly. And I noticed it when I put them together. So I measured this block thinking I cut it wrong. I did not. This is not cut straight. But I'm just going to hide this in the seam. As quilters, we are good at making things work, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So, but it's out here, so we can't deal with it yet. We'll see it again, I promise. So in the meantime, we now have row 1, row 2, and row 3 complete. So we're simply going to add row 1 to row 2. And row 3 to row 2, okay? And when we do it, I will tell you up front, can you guess which way I'm going to press? I'm going to press in because I want to come away from the flying geese. So let me get this all done and I'll see you in just a sec. So here she is in all her fantabulous scrappiness. Don't you just love it? I just wanted to come and let you see up close and personal, even our little mishap up here, which I'll hide inside the seam. No big deals, okay? So I'm going to come back at you face to face, and I just got a little bit of housekeeping, and I'll see you in just a sec. Isn't this fun? This is fantabulously fun, right? So I just wanted to give you a couple little tips. If you're doing this from your stash or non-haphazardly, and you're worried about having two fabrics hitting each other, okay? Instead of doing a whole bunch at once, okay, it might be better to see where you're at and build as you go. So what does that mean? So go ahead and do your star. And then when deciding about your sashings, look at 2 stars next to each other or 4, whatever it takes, so that you know that you're not pulling the same color or the same print or the same color and print, so that it ends up a little scrappy. So that's one of the things I do when it's completely scrappy. I just kind of look to see what I've done and where I can go, okay? And build it as we go. I know that's counterintuitive to the pattern, but you can also use the coloring sheet and get your colorways under control and just constantly follow that, which would allow you to build ahead, okay? But if not, it's all good. Isn't she cute? Isn't she cute? Okay, so it's all good. Just build as you go, okay? So that you can make sure not to pull those fabrics all at the same time. So I wanted to give that heads up. So I will tell you, we will be on today at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Why? Because we're in Virginia for our live quilting and answers, live Q&A. Yay. So we'll have some more to talk about there, and let's see how excited we have been, and if anybody has any questions about the pattern. All right. I do also want to tell you, and I'll talk more about it in the live, for those of you who are building the 4-inch, I'm doing a little help. Okay. So if there's not an It's So Emma foundation paper piecing for you, I am creating some of them. And one of them is right here. This is the 9 patch that goes in the center because it's 4 inches, and yeah, you know, you'd have to cut like 1.833 inch squares. Well, ain't nobody going to do that. I don't even know how to do that. So I've made it more simple by giving you the FPP version on my end. And in the directions, I do talk about that and how to get it done and how big to cut the squares and all the good stuff, right? So we'll talk more about that on the live. And yeah, so live at 3, live quilting and answers. Our next pattern drop will be on September 17th. Okay, so mark your calendars for center block number 2. And if you haven't grabbed it yet, go to our blog. The links are in the description box. Grab your pattern while it's free, and let's have a fantabulous time together making our fantabulous scrappy stars. Until 3 p.m. or until next time, may you all continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful. Never stop believing and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. We love y'all. Happy quilting, happy fantabulous star making, and I'll see you all soon.